welcome to another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. I'm Captain Rick Riles. Hey, we're going to have a lot of fun today. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick stop over in Nosara, Costa Rica, check in live with one Craig Sutton to find out how the marlin are biting in paradise. Then we're going to come back to the northeast coast of Florida and start our way all the way down the east coast through the Keys, up the west coast, out the Panhandle, and get the latest fishing report. I've also got a question for the boys this week. I want to know, if you only had one color lure to fish with, and everybody's got their favorite lure, obviously, but if you only had one color, what would it be? Wonder what that'll be. All right, we'll certainly find out. Florida Sportsman Action Spotter is brought to you this week and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature together. By Tournament Master Chum. Oh, it's the best chum on earth. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. By D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. And by Young Boats. And it is indeed our pleasure this week to welcome a brand new sponsor, somebody that when I first heard about it, I laughed at it until I wore one of their hats. That is the Castaway Hat Company. Castaway Hat Company has a hat for every adventure. If you haven't worn one while you're out in the sun, don't laugh it off until you do it. Let's get rolling with a quick trip to Nosara, Costa Rica to check in with one Craig Sutton. Any day's a good day if you started in paradise. I promise you that. That would be Nosara, Costa Rica, the most beautiful place I've ever been. The purveyor of all good things in Nosara is one Craig Sutton. Craigie, how are you?
Man, we're good, Captain Ricky.
You ever been called a purveyor before?
I think that's insulted. I don't know.
I know you haven't been insulted. That being a purveyor is a good thing. You need to spend more time purveying. Tell me about the fishing in Nosara.
Well, we got a nice big wahoo last week. I fished out of here trying to catch me one, and a nice big marlin today. It's about as good as it gets right now. Now, I will say the sailfish have been off a little bit. They've been off all year long, by the way, but we're catching a lot of marlin and a lot of big mahi.
Yeah, it's funny. You've got to understand that when you have like a bad year on sailfish, we always tend to blame ourselves and overfishing and all this. But that's not the case with sailfish because nobody's keeping them.
Yeah, no, it's I think it's just a natural event.
That's right.
I'm not going to stress about it. I worry about what I can control. But you know what? Myself personally, I could catch 100 sailfish and not going to light me up like catching one marlin. So.
Well, you got a good point there. The only thing that I like better about sailfish, Craig, is quite honestly, on our boat, when we miss one, I know we're in a good spot. Let's work around and we'll get another one up here in a minute. And usually we will. Boy, you miss a marlin off the east coast of Florida. Oh, well, there goes 2022, huh?
Yeah, no, that's true, man. That's true. I know I raised one last year in April, third week of April. Raised one. I didn't even get him on my bait. He was next to me and jumping, and I'm still lit up about that.
Oh yeah. We don't get to see him every day. Yep.
That was 11 months ago. And I heard about, you were telling me about that one somebody hooked up over the weekend. But it's been an everyday occurrence for us catching marlin.
How about
one
that?
Or two almost every trip if we get a full day out of it. But we're catching some on these little shorter trips, 3/4 and half days. But man, anytime you catch one of them boys, that's a good thing.
As always, we appreciate it. How are your bookings look? You're always telling us to come June, July, and August. Is there any time left in that frame?
I think this morning we sealed off the first part of June. We're good after around the 17th. We've got about 99% of the 1st of July booked. Still some room for some small packages. And then August is starting to get there and stuff. But, hey, call me and let's put something together. If we have to, we'll kick somebody out.
And they can call you at 904-591-2161 or go to fishingnosara.com, right?
That's exactly right.
I've learned in the years, my boy. Thank you, Craigie. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
I'll be looking forward to it, Ricky.
Captain Craig Sutton from Nosara Paradise Fishing. Let's go to Northeast Florida and check in with one David Voorhees. David, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing fine, Ricky. Doing fine.
Good deal. Hey, there was a blue marlin caught off St. Augustine yesterday on the short story. And
really? That's fantastic.
A handful of sailfish. Tell me what's going on inshore.
Well, I tell you what, inshore, Ricky, it has been phenomenal this week. Now, you know, certain things really amaze me when it comes to fishing. And one thing, and we've talked about this on the radio show, and it's how quick fish tend to either move in or move out of an area. Now, offshore, you guys, you know, y'all got schools that they come up and down the coast. It's no big thing. But inshore, you know, it's like one day, all of a sudden, a particular species will just appear. Wasn't there yesterday or the day before or the week before, and then all of a sudden, one day, they're everywhere. Well, talk to some guys today, and all up and down the intercoastal, we're catching Spanish mackerel.
How about that? That's weird.
Intercoastal.
Yeah.
All the way down by Palm Valley.
Yeah, that's weird.
Now, explain that to me, Rick.
I can't explain that, and I don't know where they came from because if they're in the ocean, I haven't seen hiding or hair of them.
Well, they're in the intercoastal. They're little bitty guys, but there's plenty of them. But let me tell you about my week this week. You know, we've had that new moon coming off this new moon. We had that worm hatch, and it's a tough bite. You know, a lot of dead stick, and you're only going to get a handful of bites. You know, you might only catch one or two reds when they're feeding on the worm hatch. But the worm hatch is over, and we have been seeing today, we saw reds backs out of the water, crashing the shoreline. And I'm telling you, the minute you put your lure in front of them, you counted the 2, 1, 2, and you set the hook.
How about that?
It was pretty awesome, Rick. Found some really good trout this week. And, you know, here we go. We talked about this on the radio show. You're asking me, am I seeing any big trout? No. I wait till I start seeing the finger mullet show up. Well, guess what I saw all over the place today? Nice finger mullet running up and down the shoreline. So it's time. The temperature's right. We're about 67. What I was seeing inshore today, bait was everywhere. Reds crashing the shoreline, backs out of the water. You know, it's schools of Spanish mackerel, schools of nice-sized trout. Caught our first big trout of the year. Here it is, you know, the first week and in March, and we got our first gator trout of the year. Now, she did not have any roe in her. She was pretty much empty, you know, wasn't rowed up yet. And, you know, me, I'm going to release all those. Anything over 19 inches goes back in the water for me. And all my clients, they know that. We release those big trout. Got our first one of the year just after you was asking me on the radio show, am I seeing any big trout? And I said no. The next day, boom, we catch one. So
fantastic.
Next time on the radio show, ask me something, and I'll go catch it for you.
All right, next week on the radio show, I'll ask you about snook, okay? So,
okay, sounds
you
good.
got it. David, I got a question for you.
Okay, let's hear it.
With all this gas shortage, they are going to crack down on fishermen. For the rest of your life, you only get to use one color tail with your jigs. What are you going to use? Okay. What are you going to choose?
Okay, well, that's sort of I got to ask you now.
Nope.
Does it have to be a color?
Yeah. You only get one color.
So it can't be white. It can't be white.
Oh, it can be, sure. If white's a color.
Well, white's not really a color,
but for this conversation,
okay,
it is.
I'll say pearl. How's that?
Pearl that's
white.
Okay.
I would go with pearl, and I'll tell you what, if I could, you know, if it was a combination, it'd be the pearl with the white with the red head.
Yeah,
man, the oldest thing in the book, Rick.
Sure it is.
I mean, our great-grandfathers were fishing with that color.
Right. Mirror was built on the old, what was it, M51 with a red head and a white body?
Yep. But I'm going to go with pearl white.
Okay.
Pearl white is my color.
All right.
And if that was the only one I got to fish with, that I'd be happy.
So I'm gonna go ahead and guess
work.
it. I'm gonna go ahead and guess that your jig head for that pearl whitetail is gonna be red.
There you go. Red jig head, white pearl.
See how I figured that out? Thank you, David. I look forward to talking with you next week.
All right, Ricky, tight lines, buddy.
Captain David Voorhees from right up here in Northeast Florida. I'll bet you don't even remember the days that all us cool kids would rub baby oil mixed with iodine to help us get even darker in the summertime. Being burnt was cool. And even if you weren't a surfing legend, you sure looked the part. Oh, man, have a lot of us paid the price for our vanity. We never knew the skin problem and health damage that awaited us when we got older. Today's fishermen have the option of being so much healthier in the sun than we ever thought of, thanks in no small part to Castaway Hat Company, who not only provides our podcasters with Castaway straw hats, but they make the coolest prints on the underside of the brims you ever saw. You may think your Bimini top or T-top blocks the sun, but as an awful lot of us OGs can tell you, you can't have enough protection from sun damage. Do what we do. Put on the sunblock and put on your Castaway straw hat. You'll look the part of today's best anglers, and you'll even be helping the environment. That's because for each Castaway hat sold, the Castaway Company will pay to have 1 pound of trash removed from our waterway. Hey, in a few years, you'll thank us old guys. But for now, go to CastawayHatCo.com. That's CastawayHatCo.com and get your best sun protection today. All right, time to head on down the coast a little bit to East Central and check in with one Captain Jim Ross. Jimmy, how are you?
We're doing great down here on the Space Coast today, Rick.
Good, good. I saw a launch the other day. Was that like Thursday or Friday, I think?
I can't keep them all straight. There was 2 last week, if I remember correctly, and
Yeah,
I think
I
there's
saw the
another one
second
going in the next day or 2. I mean, it's just, they're lighting them like bottle rockets on the 4th of July around here anymore.
That's cool, and it's especially cool to me when I can see them from my back porch. Tell me about your fishing.
Oh, and that's the truth. Right before the blow, epic, absolutely epic bite along the beach. And it's not just one of those, I'm saying it's epic. It truly was. It was just phenomenal. We were getting triple tail, bull reds, sharks, tarpon, pokey pods moved in. It was just absolutely on fire. Then the wind started blowing, and so we've been relegated to kind of hanging around in the Banana River, Indian River, and the pressure has changed. You know, it's gone up quite a bit, and that has kind of slowed our bite down. I'm seeing a lot more fish than what I'm catching, and that always indicates that they're not happy about something. And the only thing that I can see that's really bothering them, because it's not really the direction of the wind, it's just that we still have a real high pressure in the area, and the fish are just touchy to it. So, like we always do, whenever things get touchy, you slow everything down, or you just stop altogether. And so today we netted some finger mullet, and we went out there and promptly stepped on them and put them on the hook and threw them out, because that was the only way that the redfish would eat them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's funny, everybody struggles and struggles and struggles to keep their finger mullet alive.
Exactly.
Do me a favor. Cut mine in 2 and hand him to me, will you please?
Yeah,
yeah. Yep. No, I absolutely think you're right about that, Jimmy. That's for sure. Hey, I got a question for you.
What's that?
You throw a lot of jigs in plastic, right?
Oh, yeah.
Uh-oh. You can only throw one color tail for the rest of your career. What are you throwing?
For all species, or do I get to pick a species?
Nope. You only get one color.
One color for everything?
What part of one color didn't you understand, Jim? Work with me here.
I'm just, I'm trying to catch that angle, I would have to say white. White is probably the most universal color that you can throw for any given species at any time of the year in any color water. That would be my first choice.
That makes 2 in a row. You and David Voorhees both said white. All right,
well,
Cap.
I'm in good company.
You're in good company indeed. All right, my brother. I look forward to talking with you next week.
All right, take care, Rick.
Thank you, Jimmy.
You know what Yamaha Outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalu marine engine oils. Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalu full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalu marine oils at your nearest Yamaha Outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahaaoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, being consistent is the mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to its name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to use second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master Chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore-offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built? Then you need to visit the Young Boat Facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. Let's head on down to South Beach and check in with the mayor himself, Alan Sherman. Alan, how are you?
I'm here, Rick, and that was a great introduction, got to say.
Yeah, John gave a great report, but I'm afraid his fishing wasn't very good. Please tell me yours is better.
Everybody in the state of Florida is going through the same thing. We've had nothing but wind. Not just really strong winds, as everybody knows, and that takes out a lot of the areas that everybody wants to fish. Right now, it's only, the offshore fishing. You got to have a big boat and a strong stomach. The good news is the winds are projected to start tapering off as of right now, and I'm looking at the trees and they're not really moving much, so it looks like it may be happening already. But the guys that fished this week, and it wasn't me, not in the offshore side anyway, they were working the Gulf Stream edge, which was close inshore because of the strong east winds that had been pushed into within 2.5 miles of the coast. And they were picking off a few decent dolphins, not lots of them, but they were coming through in little groups. They really weren't targeting them. They had their baits out, under kites for sailfish, and a few sailfish were caught. And then the dolphin would show up, a handful, sometimes a couple. But some fish March, 30-pounders, and what you expect March and April, some of the biggest dolphin of the year. There's been a few blackfin tunas working that blue water edge, and then the occasional sailfish. Just starting to see some hammerhead sharks migrating into our area, and the guys with the kites are getting into them as well. It's not spectacular fishing, but it's still fishing, and it's only going to get better as we get further into March and then into April. So we have good things to look forward to. In the bay, we've had some decent sea trout fishing. You got to fish the east side of the bay because the west side's been so rough. But that seems to be where most of the fish are anyway. There's a few areas of healthy grass, and the fish are spawning. I keep telling my guys, enjoy the catch, but then release the fish. Let them spawn, let them reproduce, and let's get a healthy population back. And most of my guys are doing that. You're allowed 3 per person with only better on board. It's not per person anymore. You can only have one that's over 19 inches on the boat.
Right.
There's some snooking tarpon in the ocean.
Yeah, I applaud that sea trout regulation. I think if we take the pressure off those big spawning fish, it can only help us in the long run.
Of course, it's a great rule, and I agree. So in the ocean inlets, there's been snook and tarpon mostly at night and on the outgoing tides. They're sitting there waiting for the shrimp to come through. And even when they don't come through, they're still there hoping that one will. You got a good shot at it. Other than that, I've fishing in Flamingo has been tough, but I'll let somebody else talk about that on the podcast. I think that's kind of rounds it up for this week.
Hey, Alan, I got to ask you a question. You throw a lot of jigs in plastic, right?
I do.
Especially when you're trout fishing. You could have You could have one color plastic for the rest of your fishing career. What would it be?
Well, I'm going to say pearl white.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, the key to the soft plastic in today's world is whether or not it's scented or not.
Yeah, I think you're right, bud.
If it's scented, you're going to get struck no matter what color. But on my boat, you're going to find two colors. Natural, which is kind of like a reddish in color,
mm-hmm.
and then you're going to mostly pearl white. And
Gotcha.
that's what I throw.
Gotcha. Okay. And do you like scented or unscented better?
You don't. There's no unscented ones on my boat.
No.
All the unscented ones are stuck in a corner in my garage, and I haven't used them for years.
Well, I guess that answers that question. Cap, we appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Anytime, Rick.
Thank you, Captain Alan Sherman. Time to go to Bud and Mary's, sit under the tiki hut with my old buddy Bean Storin. Brandon, how are you?
I'm great, Rick. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine. I'll have a Diet Coke, by the way, if you're serving. Tell me what's going on at Bud and Mary's.
Well, it's been blowing 20, 25 knots, I feel like, for the past week. It's been cooking every day. But if it's blowing, we're going. Since I have that 20-foot Seacraft, I can make it around town at least.
Yeah.
So that's what we've been doing. We've been sticking around town. We've kind of had that tarpon bite that just started getting going, and it kind of shut off since we had all this wind, but we've still caught a couple. There's been some beautiful mangrove snappers around. Caught a 22-incher yesterday.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. The ultralight rods that we use for all the 10, 12, 14-inch mangs. I thought it was a big hook. He went running right into the trees. I had to get 3/4 of the boat into the trees, and I saw him wrapped around a mangrove root, and I gassed him. I told the guy to open his bail, and I brought him in the boat. That's a cool fish on light tackle. It's a fish I greatly appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
We've also been having some sawfish around while you're tarpon fishing. 2 days in a row, I caught 2 cobia, and I guess it's because they're on a sawfish. One of the cobia followed the sawfish all the way up to the boat, and the next day a cobia just ate one of the tarpon baits, but that day I also caught 3 sawfish. So, it's just that time of year where sawfish are down here spawning, I think, and some cobia are following them. But honestly, this week has been all around town fishing, catching some dinner, some nice sized mangrove snapper, and then putting the big rods out for the other part of the day for hopefully tarpon, but you get some sharks mixed in. So that's been that's been a routine for this week.
Brandon, it seems to me like even, when you and I first started doing the podcast together, it seems to me like you're mentioning sawfish more and more often. Are you seeing more of them than you used to?
Yeah, and I mean the guys who've been casting down here for a long time, they said that the past few years their population has definitely increased by a lot.
Okay.
I mean, one day this week I caught 5 out of 7 sawfish.
Wow. How big were they?
7. I mean, the biggest one was almost 15, 16 foot.
That's a big one. Yep. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I mean, there's nothing more eerie you see coming up than that big saw, but it's a cool fish. It's awesome, and it's just so cool to see such an old prehistoric fish making such a comeback right now. But yeah, one day we went like 5 for 7, and then the next day I caught 3 before we even had a bite of any other bycatch.
I'll be darned.
We caught 3 sawfish back to back to back, and we had a double header of them. We had 2 sawfish on at the same time.
That's fantastic. That's great. All right, you get to throw one color plastic for your jig tails for the rest of your career. What color are you going to throw?
White.
White, yep. We've had 5 answers, and 4 of the guys have picked white.
Yep. Well, matches a white bait, and you kind of try to match the color of your water, but no matter what color water you're in, the bait's white. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I will say, if I had to only throw one lure ever, I would throw those little marabou jigs.
Really?
Every single thing in the ocean or in fresh water will eat a little marabou jig, from a big tarpon to a little crappie.
Yep.
Everything
right.
eats those little white marabou jigs.
You're exactly right. Brandon, we appreciate it as always. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Always.
You got it. Captain Brandon Storen from Bud and Mary's. Time to hit the West Coast. We'll start in 10,000 Islands. But before we go, let's have a word from Shimano. You know, there's one thing just about all our podcasters have in common. We rely on Shimano gear when the day is on the line. Whether it's Jim Ross chasing a tarpon with a Saragusa spinner, Alan Sherman catching muttons on the bait runners, Shimano gear is everywhere in Florida. You see, Shimano builds a reel for every fish that swims, and when it seems like every year they come out with new models with names that take me 6 months to pronounce correctly. But you know what? There's also a couple of models that have stood the test of time and stand at the top of brand loyalty even today. If I'm fishing an inshore spinner, be it fresh or salt, you can count on the fact I'm throwing a Shimano Stratic. Why? It's because it's been around the block and it just never fails. And if there's a blue water boat looking for a sea monster, I can almost promise you there's Shimano Tiagras pulling the big fish baits. Why do the best blue water guys count on Tiagras year after year? For the same reason I always throw a Stratic when I need to hook a redfish for my granddaughter. Because when the day is on the line, you can count on the time-tested Tiagra and Stratic from Shimano. Our thanks to Breen Storen for a great Alamorada report. That means it's time to head west into 10,000 Islands and check in with Steve Dahl. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing great, Rick. How about yourself?
Well, I'm sick of the wind already. March has already proven to be the windiest month of the year. Tell me how your fishing's going.
Well, just that. Those days that we can get, out there a little bit out into the Gulf or catching some beautiful cobia, but the winds are going to really start kicking up here. This weekend's not going to be any different. We're looking at 20 to 30 mile an hour winds this weekend, and that'll shut down that nearshore bite. But the good part is the backcountry fishing fantastic, and all 3 fish are in play. When I say that, that's redfish, trout, and snook. I probably hedge my bets. We got some good tides, coming through, and cleaner water if you can get out, prior to these windy days. The inside of, the farthest north that you can get kind of push into the 10,000 Islands will still have that clean tannic water and won't be affected as much. So if you get that fine, clean water, that's your number one thing. And there's a ton of snook out there, and they'll readily obviously eat, live pilchards, things like that. But I'm telling you, plugs and soft plastics have really been, the ticket this past week. And we're catching fish in that, lower 30-inch class and some fish that are pushing, mid 30-inch range too. So bigger fish are still there, which is awesome. And we're catching a lot of them on artificials. So it's doing pretty good.
Huh. Speaking of artificials, all right, that's this week's question. If you could only throw one color for the rest of your career, what would you throw?
Well, I'll preface it by saying our water is what I've always called like an iced tea color, tannic water, and it's very clear, but it has an iced tea, effect to it. So, I like, the pure gold, some of that available, but a color called Copperhead by Wise Guys Tackle is probably my very best. It's kind of a variation of that. It has copper flake in it, some gold, and a little bit of red. But the body is actually like a watermelon seed. So but it's really flashy. Shows up coppers and reds and golds always show up really well in tannic water, and that thing will catch just about anything swimming in the 10K, from tarpon all the way to trout, reds, snook, and a whole bunch of stuff in between. So that's probably my number one based on my area that I would throw.
That's interesting. I'll be darned. Are you a big scented guy or more unscented?
Yeah, I like scented stuff. I believe in that, and I believe in it for one reason more so than most. And I'm a big believer that scent helps mask all the stuff that we have on our hands, suntan lotions. If you're a smoker, that helps mask that. All these foreign things, you might have got a little gas or oil on you in the morning. Your coffee, your Danish, whatever that is. I'm a big believer that stuff obviously isn't natural. So I like scented baits because I think that masks it a lot more so. I'm not so much looking for the fish attractant quality of it. I'm looking to mask their scents. So.
Well, for me, that wouldn't make any difference because when I'm done with my Danish, I lick my fingers clean.
I'm definitely overthinking it. I know.
I think you are.
Any little advantage I think I can get, I'm going to do. And
there
if you
you
have
go.
confidence, if you have confidence while you're fishing, use it.
The gasoline I need to mask. The Danish, it's already gone. Thank you, Cap. I appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Oh, absolutely. Can't wait.
Our thanks to Steve Dahl for telling us all about 10,000 Islands, where the wind is blown, just like it is blown all over Florida. I'll bet you Greg Stamper is in the one part of Florida where there's been no wind lately. Am I right, Greg?
Oh, I haven't had wind here in months. We don't get wind down here. We put up these big walls. It doesn't even get in our area.
You're a line dog.
You're absolutely right. It's been blowing like crazy, and our back bays are still pretty muddy, but there is some clean water out there. I've seen it. About a mile and a half. It looks pretty good, and on those higher tides, it sort of creeps its way into our bays, and then on the outgoings, everything's just all muddied up again. So it is what it is, Rick, but it's all good. If you find that clean water when it does enter, especially towards the end of those higher tides, we still, even continuing with the water not being perfect, are catching pompano now. So that's going to happen for a while. We caught some nice pompano this week. We had several days where we caught 5 or 6 in about an hour and a half. And these fish are anywhere from about 2 to 3 pounds. After that, we've basically been trout fishing because people want to eat some food. They're down here visiting, and that's what we can keep. But if I get people who don't want to do that, it's all about redfish right now. And the snook are starting to move back out again. They're starting to feel that warm up. But with the muddy water, I can't sight fish. So I just have to kind of dial it in on where they should be, or just use cut baits on those shorelines and those oyster bars as that water is moving around.
Mm-hmm. That sounds very good. So you're able to scrape out a day and get out of the wind, even as hard as it's been blowing lately, huh?
Yes, sir. I can do that every day. There is a number that I keep in my head that's above that 15 to 20, then I'm probably not going to do it. But I can still hide if they just want to catch some fish and have action. We can still get it done. But for the most part, for me, I can hide most of the time, except when you get those really hard north winds and then those tides are low. Then it really kind of restricts the areas that you can be in. Now, like nearshore guys, cobia just stopped this week for whatever reason. They were doing real well. They're still picking up some permit here and there, especially the guys that are fishing a little bit further towards the south end of the region. They're finding good fish on those wrecks and those reefs, so they can make a nice day out of it, along with a few snappers, black drum, and, of course, there's still some nice sheepshead out here. Hey, on a funny note, Rick, we talked about triple tail last week. I ran a private boat back from Naples today. It was a client of mine. He just wanted us to go out there. He wanted his family to have a few drinks and me drive, so they had nothing to worry about. And on the way back, I was running a trap line. Sure enough, I saw that silver dinosaur. He's about 20, 25 pounds. I didn't even have a rod on the boat, so I couldn't even stop. I just kept rolling. But that was literally the only fish I saw when I was running that trap line or line. And I ran 45, 50 minutes at 30 miles an hour.
Man, I love a 20-pound triple tail. Greg, let me ask you real quick before you go. You can only throw one color plastic for the rest of your career. What's it going to be?
Okay, so, the only color? Wow, that's tough. Well, I can use just about any color as long as it's chartreuse or has chartreuse on it. So the root beer and chartreuse or something with chartreuse, especially the jig head being the chartreuse, would probably be more important to me than just the actual tail. But chartreuse to me, Rick, has done it about for almost everything I've fished for, minus like a bonefish or maybe a permit.
I'm putting down one vote for chartreuse. Thank you, buddy.
Tight lines, Rick.
We appreciate it, Captain Greg Stamper. Let's move on up the coast a little bit and check in with Ray Markham for the West Central Report. Raymond, how you doing?
Fantastic.
Good, good. William says he
Another day in paradise.
William says he shot 5 squirrels the other day too, not 2 like we heard. So I'm just
well, he shot probably 5 times at 3 squirrels.
All right, I give up. We ain't talking squirrels no more. Tell me about your fishing.
Kind of a potpourri, actually, and that's a good thing. I'm getting reports, they're scattered all over the place, which is also a good thing, because here to this point, there's been a lot of reports that were not much going on here, not much going on there, and then one place you find, we're catching a few fish, but they had some pretty good action up and down the coast with trout, snook, redfish, Spanish mackerel, and bluefish. So
okay.
That's the inshore guys, what they're doing. The guys that are still running the beaches are still finding a few triple tail, although they're kind of thinning out. And so, the guys that are doing some offshore stuff, they're still having to stay pretty much inside the 120-foot mark for grouper. So, that's kind of where a lot of the guys are going out beyond that early, getting some bigger mangrove snapper, maybe tussling with some amberjack and a few blackfin tuna, and then coming back in before the end of the day, so they got enough time to maybe catch a couple of red grouper and take something home for dinner that way.
Well, that sounds awfully good. If the wind will just back off a little bit and let them all get out, it sounds like they're doing okay.
We've been pretty good over here. We've had a few breezy days, but overall, it's been pretty doggone good. And if you plan it just right, you get out on the right days or the right time of the day, it's been really good. I think we may be in for a little bit of a change come this weekend. There's a front that's predicted to come in and temperature drop, but I think that's going to be a good thing. In my opinion, we're already sitting here in late March, early April temperatures. So, stepping back a notch wouldn't hurt my feelings at all.
Yeah, I'm ready for one more cool down before we go.
Yes,
hey,
sir.
I got to ask you a question.
Uh-huh.
All right. If you could only throw one color plastic the rest of your career, what would you throw?
Well, I get that question pretty often, and I'll tell you, it's the color that you have most confidence in. And for me, that's any of the soft plastics that I have that have glow in it. But if I'm going to pick just one, I want one that looks probably natural a good portion of the time, but it still has the glow in. And for me, it's a D.O.A color they call Arkansas Glow.
You're not the first one of our action spotters that picked that color, I promise you.
Well, it's a good one. I guarantee it.
Arkansas Glow from D.O.A. Thanks, Ray. We appreciate your report so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Yes, sir, you will.
Hi, you got it. Captain Ray Markham from West Central Florida. Now it's time to head to Omasafsa. We can't go there without talking to Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, how are you?
Doing good. We got some beautiful spring weather, and everything is biting, including the kitchen sink right now.
Okay. All right, Captain William Tony, tell me what's going on. What's biting?
All right. Now, for all the inshore, we're looking at some really good trout right now, especially in about 2 to 3 foot of water. Incoming or outgoing tide, it doesn't matter as long as you're in that right depth and you're looking for live bottom, sponges, a little bit of brain coral, just that kind of dark brown bottom mixed in with that green turtle grass. Those hard patches is where your big trout's going to be laying. They catch them on the D.O.A 5.5-inch glow jerkbait nose hook with a 3/0 hook. So that's your trout. Now, as far as redfish goes, start looking for them on your inside keys, not outside, but kind of a little bit toward the back country on the high incoming tide, any rocky point. And again, I always say, you see jumping mullet, that's where I gravitate to. So you see those jumping mullet, move into that area. I've been using a cork and a shrimp. It's kind of old school, and never get tired of seeing that cork just disappear. Nope. And I always tell people, I say, don't blink, or, the big question I get in the boat is like, hey, Cap, where's my cork? It's like, well, why are you asking me? Start reeling.
Hence the term, your cork, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing is when that cork goes down, it goes down very quickly, especially if the redfish bite. See a lot of people, get premature to, you're seeing that cork bobble or pinfish touching it or whatever's messing with it. Just let it be. When a redfish hits it, it's very quick. And that's how I've been getting the reds. Now, for your snook, using the same bait, that 5.5-inch glow D.O.A. jerk bait on your high outgoing tides, anywhere there's a deep drop-off near Rocky Point, that's where I've been catching them. There hasn't been a whole lot of slot fish coming to the boat, but there's Captain Socrates up in Crystal River. He's been posting some very nice 40-inch fish. Now, he's been using a lot of live bait, cast netting, little mullet, and I tell you another bait that's been popular in the area are the mud minnows. So if you want to use some live bait, that's what's been getting some big snook. But if you like the comb shoreline and learn the area, I guarantee you get that 5.5-inch jerk bait and put your trolling motor down or get your buddy up on the pulling platform and hit those deep drop-offs on the point. And then from there, we can move offshore, and we're still catching fish out there.
I got to tell you, what are they catching?
Right now is some nice mangrove snappers. Believe it or not, it's kind of neat to see the migration. Every year it changes. Like some years we'll have really big mangrove snapper during the cold winter up in the river. And we had a few all the way up to the headwaters and things around the springs. But a couple captains that I know, Captain Chris Wilkins in particular, has been running out, to 20 to 35 foot all winter long and being consistent on, those 2 to 5 pound mangrove snappers. So those fish, believe it or not, when that water starts to warm like it is now, where it's hitting, about 70, 72 degrees, there's been a couple inshore guides running out in state waters, 8 to 12 foot, 10 foot, somewhere in that area. And I saw one of the inshore guides with a trout rod with a 19-inch mangrove snapper, which is pretty incredible, on light tackle. So that's going on. In fact, when I was out there, we caught some nice, 14 to 15-inch mangrove snapper mixed in with some late season sheepshead. The sheepshead have been in the same area and also catching a few flounder and sometimes a couple trout out there mixed in with sea bass and Spanish mackerel and then your grunts. So anywhere there's hard bottom out in that 8 to 12 foot range is the time of year that you want to start using some jigs, especially for the trout, the mackerel, sea bass, flounder. And a real popular area off of Homosassa is called the bombing range, which basically you get out there if you're just about 4.5 to 5 miles due northwest of St. Martin's Keys. That would be the bombing range out there. And traditionally, that's where the springtime stuff happens, where you're going to catch a potpourri of fish that you don't even know what each cast will handle, but it will always be a fish. And you just look for that hard bottom and all that scattered rock. And there is some old bomb holes back there. Back in the day, it was a bombing range, but very popular area and a good place you could set up a big, long drift. You can go for a mile and catch everything out there.
All right, real quick. You always mention that 5.5-inch jerkbait from D.O.A. You can only have one color. What's it going to be?
I'm going to say it's got to be the watermelon red flake.
Watermelon red flake.
Watermelon red flake. I will say I love my mirror lure soft plastics. I love my DOAs, but if I had to just pick one that would go all the way through the season and not be specific about a certain time of year like spring or fall or winter, I've had very good luck with the mirror lure watermelon red flake in the Little John or the Provoker series, which that color has caught fish for me all through the years. Now, sometimes in certain times of the season, other baits will work better than that. this bait will catch fish, but, you know, we're not going to compare like apples and oranges or anything. This is the one that I would probably keep in my back pocket.
Gotcha. William, we appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can check on Homosassa next week.
I'll be here, right here in downtown Homosassa, feeding gnats.
All right, keep the golf cart traffic down. We'll talk to you soon. We'll be leaving soon. Before we go to the Northwest Florida, let's check in with D.O.A. Yeah, you know, it's finally warming up, and of course that means the water's warming up right along with the air. And just like the great fish always do, the biggest and the baddest of so many species we fish for will soon be heading to deeper water in an attempt to cool off. You name it. If it feeds deeper in the water column, it can't refuse a D.O.A. terrorize. It drives straight down and crawls across the bottom with an action no deep feeder can resist. Whether it's a crappie deep under some lily pads or a tarpon rooting around the bridge pilings, D.O.A. makes a size and color terrorize they just can't say no to. Flashing that big bright eye in front of any bottom-feeding game fish is just unfair. Maybe that's why they call D.O.A. lures the unfair advantage. Now it's time to head out west. We can't leave Florida till we go through the Panhandle. That's where we find one Tyler Massey. Tyler, how are you?
I'm doing good, Rick. How are you guys?
Good, good. You had a little wind over there, have you?
Yeah, it's been a little windy. We had a little bit of rain, the last couple of days. But, yeah, we've still been fishing inshore, though. This time of year, we pretty much focus more of our efforts on the inshore fishing. The fishing picks up, so, decent bite. And it also don't have to worry about the sea conditions. So inshore, we've been starting out the trips, trying to catch a few sheep's head. We run towards our pass, fish around the rock jetties, and in the deep part of our pass, there's some rock boulders on the bottom, and it's about 55 foot of water, 60 foot of water, and we do catch some sheep's head there, and then all along the rocks and that kind of stuff. So it's been a little slow, but we pick away and catch a couple. You sit there for a little while, soak some bait, but fishing live shrimp or fiddler crabs on the rocks, and then live shrimp in the deep water. And that's just mainly fishing Carolina rigs. So that's been it's still a little slow, and it's only going to get better every day until April. So that's where we've been starting out our trips is trying to catch a few sheep's head.
So you don't think your sheep's head have peaked yet, huh?
Oh, no, not at all. It's not even really kicked off for us. I mean, it's just been, the lead fish trickle towards the pass and kind of get down there first, and then wait for the big schools to come before they spawn, before they go offshore. So I think we still have another good 3 weeks of sheephead fishing, and it's going to be, hot and heavy here in probably a week and a half or two.
I hope you're right. That's outstanding. Has anybody gotten offshore at all?
A little bit before we had some wind, but we've been catching our trigger fish. It's one per person. Fishing smaller wrecks for those typically. Anything from 80 foot to 150 foot of water, and the trigger fish, you kind of have to weave through the smaller fish to get some keeper-sized fish, but we fish with, cut squid, cut Boston mackerel, any kind of cut bait on a 2-drop rig. A lot of times it takes catching a few to get your keeper, but just focus on the smaller wrecks when you're trying to catch those bigger trigger fish.
Do you guys have cuttlefish over there?
Cuttlefish?
Yes.
Not that we catch.
Okay. Cuttlefish are a very small squid, and the shrimpers catch them. Our shrimpers here catch them. That is the best triggerfish bait. They cannot get it off the hook, and it'll
really?
it will drive them crazy. But,
yeah, they're definitely expert bait stealers with them small mouths.
Yes, they are, and a little bitty piece. Now, don't use a big piece. Yep. If you use half of a cuttlefish, which a cuttlefish generally is about the size of your little finger, so maybe take that piece from the outside knuckle out to the end of your finger and thread that on your little circle hook and drop that for your triggerfish and see how fast they get it in their mouth. I mean,
I bet. We need to see if we can find some of those that are frozen.
And I tell you another bait that drives them crazy, but I can't, it drives everything crazy. I can't afford to fish a full day with them, is doggone fiddler crabs. Triggerfish will go crazy over fiddler crabs.
Really?
Yeah.
We've never used a crab intentionally for a triggerfish. That's pretty cool. We do have a lot of fiddler crabs. A lot of sheephead fishermen are buying the fiddler crabs, but I have some left over. I need to try it out one time.
Try it. Trust me. All right, try it. I have actually won some tournaments because I had triggerfish when nobody else did, and the only reason I had triggerfish was we were fishing fiddler crabs.
That's awesome. We need to try that out. Maybe like a blue crab knuckle also.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That would definitely work. Hey, let me ask you a question before you go. You can only throw one color plastic for the rest of your life. What are you throwing?
You know, I kind of stick. There's only really two colors that I almost throw at all, no matter what the situations are. A pearl white artificial lure. A gulp is my go-to when it comes to artificial, but a pearl white lure and like a red head or something like that is almost my go-to no matter what. So I'd stick with that one. The close second would be like a root beer color. So either the root beer or like a pearl white. That's my go-tos no matter really what the situation is anyway. So I'd stick with that pearl white.
Gotcha. Tyler, we appreciate it as always. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
I'll be here, Rick. We'll see you guys.
Okay, Captain Tyler Massey. Hey, it's been a fun trip around the state tonight. I got to tell you, everybody's pouting about the wind, but hey, it's March. We always get a lot of wind in March. That's what triggers our great migrations. And speaking of migrations, I've gotten the word that the pogies are all the way past the Cape, almost to Daytona, maybe even a few north of Daytona, up as far as Matanzas. The cobia, we know they're going to be with them. They'll show some days and not others, but they're always there. That's good news. Spanish mackerel all over northeast Florida. That's crazy for March, I can promise you. You head down the coast, and you know what? They're not doing as well on sailfish as I'd like to see them doing in March, but they're catching some mahis, some blackfin tuna. There's some good news. I thought the most interesting report we had this week was Brandon Storn talking about the sawfish. Caught 5 sawfish in a day, and more than that for the week. That's a species we certainly seem to be bringing back because they are closed. I'm not sure that's a real game fish and is a real good thing, but it is interesting. They are prehistoric. It's fun to see them. You head around the 10,000 islands up the west coast, everybody crying about the wind. Better get used to it. But snook, trout, and redfish seem to be doing well inshore all over the state. Surprised to see them with their backs all the way out of the water in March. That's unusual. Our water temperature is a little bit above average, as it seems to be running every year this time of year. Hey, listen, we sure hope you enjoyed this week's Action Spotter podcast. Please let us know. Go on the Florida Sportsman Facebook page, or if you want to email me Rick@Florida Sportsman, and tell me what you'd like the question to be on the Florida Sportsman Action Spotter. Maybe there's a kind of fish you want to get better at. We'd sure love to help you do it. The Florida Sportsman Action Spotter is brought to you each and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature together. By Tournament Master Chum, it's the best chum on earth. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. By D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. By Young Boats. And by the Castaway Hat Co. The Castaway Hat Co. has a hat for every adventure. As for me, I'm Captain Rick Riles, and until next week, we will see you on the rip.